To create a bodice with vertical pleats, begin by tracing off your sloper, omitting the waist dart. In a minute we'll touch on how to do this with a sloper with a bust dart, but for now, try to do this exercise with a sloper with only a waist dart. Determine the number of pleats you'd like and the spacing for them. Draw in vertical lines where you'd like your pleats to go. In this example, we're doing them about 1/2 inch apart. Then draw in your horizontal stabilizing line, parallel to the waistline. This should land about in the middle of your pattern. Draw a horizontal line in about the middle of another piece of paper. Number the panels in your bodice, cut around the outside of your pattern, and then slash along the pleat lines. Beginning with your center front piece, line up your slashed piece onto the larger piece of paper and tape it down. Then measure over the total depth of your pleat intake. In this case, we want to have a 1/4 inch deep finished pleats, so we're doing a 1/2 inch pleat intake. We're going to draw another line here, perpendicular to our stabilizing line. Then take your second piece and match it up to these lines, taping it also into position. Continue working your way across the pattern until you have taped down all of your pieces. If you wish to preserve the shaping of the original waist dart, measure the depth of the dart and then divide it into 3. This dart is about 3/8 inch deep, so we're going to add 1/8 of an inch of depth to our 3 outside pleats along the side closest to the side seam. Then measure the height of the dart, about 1 3/4 inches, and mark up from the waistline at these points, that same measurement. Draw in a straight line from this new point up to the height of the dart. Next, fold your pleats closed. When you reach a pleat with extra intake, simply overlap the bottom of the fold a little bit closer. Once your pleats are all folded, you can draw on seam allowance and cut out around your pattern. Unfold your pleats to reveal your completed pattern piece. You can also add pleats to a bodice that has a bust dart. Trace around your sloper and draw in the bust dart. Draw in your pleat lines. Then, draw in a new dart point a little ways beyond the furthest pleat line. Center this point between the 2 dart legs. Draw new dart legs to this point. Erase the tip of your old bust dart, then cut out your pattern, slash along the pleat lines, and complete the pattern as we did for the previous exercise. Should you choose to sew this blouse up, you would simply construct the bust dart before pleating the bodice. Next, I'm going to show you another way to add pleats to your pattern. For this example, I'm going to add decorative pleats to a front yoke. Using your pattern piece as a guide, determine the number of pleats you'd like, the pleat spacing, and also the pleat intake. On a new sheet of paper, mark off your center front line, and then measure over the distance to your first pleat. For this example, I'd like my pleat to start a 1/4 inch away from center front, and I've marked this line with a long dashed line. Next, measure over the full distance of your pleat underlay. Since I would like 1/4 inch pleats, and they are folding under themselves, I need a 1/2 inch of underlay, which I've marked with a dashed line. Next, I'm going to measure off the distance to my next pleat. I want my pleats to be 1/2 inch apart, so I'm going to mark off another 1/2 inch. This is the start of my next pleat. Continue marking pleat lines and underlay until you finish the number of pleats that you'd like. Then, fold along your pleat line and carefully bring it to the underlay line to form your pleat. Fold up all of your pleats this way. Next, lay your yoke on top of the pleated piece of paper, and you can either hold or pin it into position as you trace around the outer edge. Add seam allowances to your new piece and cut it out. Unfold and label your pattern. I sometimes like to draw little arrows onto my pattern so I know which way to fold the pleats. This Melody Valerie dress has several rows of decorative tucks up at the bodice, which then release at the waistline to provide additional fullness in the skirt. And in this Liberty Jane top, you can see we have some lovely little decorative pin tucks.